This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for being with us tonight. Brittany is away on another assignment this evening. The prospect of relocating Winnipeg's rail yards is back on the government's radar. The province is putting up hundreds of thousands of dollars to study an idea that's been talked about for generations. And yet most train tracks have stayed exactly where they are. The CBC's Ian Fraze has more.
Every day, these train tracks carry millions of dollars of cargo through the heart of Winnipeg. They've been part of the city's identity for over a century, but it takes up hundreds of acres and divides the city.
And what we're very pleased
on
to be,
Tuesday, Premier Wabkanu resurrected talk of a Winnipeg without railway tracks. His government will spend $200,000 on a feasibility study.
What could be the potential costs? And then let's figure out maybe there's some quick steps.
Some have estimated moving the Canadian Pacific Railway yards and all the other rail lines out of Winnipeg would cost billions. This idea of rail relocation isn't new. It's been talked about on and off since the 1960s. And now the provincial government of 2024 is trying to put those discussions back on track.
Honestly, the only way we'd be able to proceed is with buy-in from all levels of government, including the feds.
Canoe hired Lloyd Axworthy to lead the study.
As the Premier mentioned,
the former federal transport minister negotiated the removal of railway lines from the Forks in the 80s, turning the area into a gathering spot and tourist destination.
If anybody doubts what a transformation can do, just look at those pictures.
Kate Kaler with the Social Planning Council wants the railways replaced with homes and green spaces, but some locals think the train tracks aren't going anywhere.
outside the city would be best, but I mean there's hundreds of miles of track here.
The reality is it's going to cost the city a fortune to even do that.
Others like the idea.
There could be houses built there, right?
The province will wait 2 years before moving in any direction. That's when the Premier will receive the report's recommendations. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, the morning, the details in this next story are upsetting. A child died on Thanksgiving Day after falling out of a high-rise apartment building in Winnipeg. Police say the child was about 4 years old and fell from the 19th floor of a Central Park area building. It happened just before 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Police say the fall was accidental.
Winnipeg's first tiny homes village for people escaping homelessness opened its doors nearly 2 years ago. Since then, staff say they've been building relationships and adapting to challenges, but they've also had some real successes.
It was awesome.
Jason Bell remembers what it was like the first time he saw his room.
It took me a while to get used to the room, but after I got used to the room, it just became home for me.
With its high metal fence giving a sense of safety, Ostamapi Nikinak has 22 units of supportive transitional housing.
Everything that folks need.
Each unit includes a bed, bathroom, and kitchen. Bell moved in shortly after the facility opened in December 2022. He says he likes that he knows his neighbors.
It's comfortable. And when you're in the shelters, you see new people all the time.
It's just a nice place. Like, it just feels really nice here.
Donna Wallstrom is the housing coordinator. She says they aim to provide residents with their basic needs.
Relationship building is very big, and that's just as important as the food, water, and shelter.
When it first opened, it quickly filled its 22 units. Since then, staff say they've had many successes. 4 residents have graduated, 2 have moved into treatment, and some are still there. But in 4 cases, individuals had mental health and addictions problems beyond the ability of staff to manage, and they had to leave. Coordinator Melissa Stone says they've adapted their intake processes to maintain a balance in the community.
With gender diversity, with having cookums and elderly folks with young, so we need to keep a balance, and with health-wise as well.
Ostamapi Nikinak has staff on site 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. With an operating budget of just over $1 million a year, the facility has 1 to 2 staff working directly with residents at any given time. They say some people need one-on-one support, which would require a significant increase to their budget.
Biggest lesson is we want to help everybody. We only have 22 homes here.
Jason Bell looks forward to one day getting his own place.
I think this is just a good place to start your to end homelessness for yourself.
Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A 28-year-old store employee has been charged with assault after a fight with an alleged shoplifter. It happened Saturday evening not far from Health Sciences Centre. Police say a 41-year-old man suffered serious injuries after getting into a fight with another man who had an edged weapon. They say the man was leaving the store with stolen merchandise when the store employee grabbed a weapon and confronted him outside. The man was taken to hospital in unstable condition and later upgraded to stable. Winnipeg animal advocates are looking for answers after several reports of cats being found dead in the Point Douglas area. Winnipeg Police and Animal Services both confirmed they're investigating, but as CBC's Gavin Axelrod reports, the incidents have left some in the neighbourhood shaken.
At least 5 cats have been found dead here in Point Douglas since the summer. Now, animal advocates want you to keep your cats inside. Winnipeg Animal Services confirms it's had 5 recent reports of dismembered cats. Kendra Halibicki runs a stray cat rescue out of her home here in the area. She says she's found some of the cats.
Because a lot of people in Point Douglas allow their cats to be outside. Most of them are outside during the daytime when the people are working from home, and then at nighttime they're brought inside for safety. And now people are like fighting their cats to keep them in because they're worried that their cats are going to get injured.
Police say the Major Crimes Unit is investigating reports of dead cats in Point Douglas. On Friday, they charged 2 people in connection with torturing and killing 10 cats. Police say the Point Douglas investigation is not related.
This is a very, very unique situation. I can't speak for as far as the volume of this occurring, but this is very unique.
Animal advocate Krista Blehut says if people come across dead cats, they shouldn't look the other way.
If you do unfortunately come across one of these cats that look like they were intentionally harmed, make sure you report it to Winnipeg Police Service because it is a crime, and report it to the Humane Society as well.
Both advocates say they hope the police investigation brings some answers. In the meantime, they're asking people to be extra careful with their pets. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, the Winnipeg Jets have stopped a 5-year slide in season ticket sales. True North Sports and Entertainment is reporting a modest increase this season. Bartley Kivas has the details.
Opening night for the Winnipeg Jets. Attendance has been a sore spot in recent years. Between 2018 and 2023, the Jets lost a quarter of their season ticket base as the pandemic, inflation, and customer dissatisfaction took a toll.
A year ago, the season ticket base in this building was down to roughly 9,500, too low to be sustainable, in the words of True North Chair Mark Chipman. Right now, the organization is trying to turn that around in a number of ways.
True North installed new scanners to speed up entry into Canada Life Centre, took over management of their own concessions, and now offers more flexible ticket packages. Norva Riddell is in charge of sales and revenue for True North.
We can't control is the product on the ice. What we can control is pretty much everything else. We can control how we make you feel, we can control how we service you, we can control your experience when you come into the venue.
The focus on customer experience seems to be working. Season ticket sales are up again, 500 more than last season.
It's nice to see that we've calmed the decline and that we're seeing the upswing now, but it's not done by any means.
The Jets want to get back to 13,000 season tickets. Riddell says that'll take a few more years. Season ticket holder Malcolm Dean says there's one more thing the club can do.
Bring the cup to Winnipeg.
It's too soon to say how more season tickets are affecting overall attendance. Through 2 home games this season, average attendance is up 250 fans over last year. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A bit of a chillier start to the day today. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy is keeping a close watch on our weather.
Thanks, Riley. Yeah, here we are. Okay, it probably feels a little bit cooler. I mean, our temperatures aren't that far off of seasonal, but because of how this month was going and how balmy things have been, yeah, today another afternoon where the temperatures in some communities really a struggle to get out of single digits. And in fact, you'll notice a few spots. Okay, you might expect it in Churchill, but a few spots where we didn't quite get there this afternoon. Yes, we made it, Winnipeg, up to 10 degrees there. So we are going to be seeing a change coming and things really flipping and turning around. The southerly flow is going to be helping us with that. 3 degrees, partly cloudy skies overnight tonight. At times it will be a little bit breezy, a bit tomorrow, especially into Thursday, but I think you may be encouraged by our high tomorrow afternoon with mostly sunny skies up to 16 degrees. I'll be back to let you know how long that's going to last, Riley.
Thanks, Colette. Well, still ahead for us, we're getting some new insight into drug overdose deaths in Manitoba, what the data shows, and the possible reasoning when we come back. Well, new numbers from the province are giving us some new insight into drug overdose deaths. The data shows that overdose victims skew older than many Manitobans might assume. And as the CBC's Ian Fraser reports, the reason may be tough to pinpoint.
The people killed by drug overdoses in Manitoba aren't always young. In fact, most are 40 and older. New preliminary data shows in May, 30 of the province's 47 overdose deaths were people aged 40 and above, including 8 people who were at least 60 years old. It's the third month in a row where most deaths involve people well into adulthood. Levi Foy leads Sunshine House, which advocates for harm reduction. He says the province only started providing age breakdowns this year.
When people think about the services that we offer, they have a very different member of the community kind of in mind when we're talking about these things. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find Manitobans who haven't been impacted personally in rural Manitoba, in Winnipeg, in all various communities by drug toxicity and drug overdose crisis that we're living in.
He says there's probably a number of reasons why older people are dying of drug overdoses. Mental health challenges is one. Another is the higher cost of everything. So drug users may be looking for cheaper choices.
When you're dealing with fluctuations that can vary from $5 from what you were using to $20 in a month period, that can cause folks to turn to different types of substances or to use in different types of ways to kind of stretch it out.
Foy says even one overdose death is too many. But the fact one person on average dies every day has to change. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The deadline to enter the Manitoba Progressive Conservative Party's leadership race has come and gone. 2 candidates got their applications in, but as the CBC's Bartley Kivas tells us, it may take another week to determine whether there will be a competitive race.
The Manitoba PCs have been without a permanent leader since former Premier Heather Stephenson stepped down. MLA Wayne Owasco is interim leader while a race to replace Stephenson's underway. The window to enter that race is closed. Brad Zander chairs the PC Leadership Election Committee.
The deadline for filing an application passed today at noon, October 15th. At that time, we had 2 completed application packages.
Fort White MLA Abi Khan got his application in on October 2nd. He's been approved as a candidate. Churchill hotelier Wally Doddridge also applied, but will have to wait to be approved. He got his application in on Thanksgiving Monday, a day before the deadline. He still has to sit for an interview and undergo a background check and social media screening. Political scientist Christopher Adams says he expected more competition in this race. He suspects the popularity of the NDP government may be to blame.
It looks like it's going to be a 2-term government, so anybody who runs for opposition has to give up his or her position and what their career is and expect to be on the opposition benches for 7 or 8 years.
Brad Zander says that isn't set in stone.
It's the view of all PC party members that the individual who ultimately is successful in this race will be the next premier of Manitoba.
Assuming both Khan and Doddridge are approved as candidates, the election will take place on April 25th. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A western Manitoba municipality is fighting to keep its police force. It was shuttered by the province after Riverdale, just outside of Brandon, struggled to keep the river's police service staffed. The CBC's Chelsea Kemp reports.
For more than 100 years, River's police service looked after the municipality of Riverdale. That's changed, though, after a provincial decision to let RCMP take over coverage of the community of 2000. Riverdale Mayor Heather Lamb says the closure came as a surprise.
What ended up happening was we were served notice from Manitoba Justice that we aren't allowed to hire.
Lamb says it's disheartening to see the police force shuttered without input from the municipality. She wants to bring it back, but the municipality will need help from the province.
I'll always have hope that we can still have a police department here in Riverdale since we had it for so long. Our next steps, though, will just be trying to get additional RCMP officers to maintain a safe community, and then maybe we can work through having staff again.
Some Rivers residents say they don't care if the Rivers Police Service comes back, as long as the RCMP provide good policing in the community. 50-year resident Garth Ventnor says he's happy he'll save on taxes.
I think Rivers could live without a police service with the RCMP doing what they're doing for us. But in mind, if they do come back, I would love to see a small little police affordable service set up. and maybe a resident police officer.
Manitoba Justice Minister Matt Wiebe says the province is still in talks with the municipality about the future of policing in the area. Lamb says she still hopes to one day see Rivers Police back in action. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Rivers.
All right, so maybe you'd rather not remember this Thanksgiving. This weekend marked 5 years since this punishing blizzard hit Manitoba. As many as 50,000 hydro customers were in the dark, some for almost 2 weeks. Winds reached over 100 kilometers an hour in some places. And some communities saw more than 30 centimeters of snow all on a Thanksgiving weekend. This, of course, prompted a provincial state of emergency. The cleanup took weeks. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy is back now. Colette, hopefully nothing like this in our forecast quite yet.
Yeah, thank goodness we're not dealing with conditions like that, but we know that kind of weather is going to catch up to us eventually. However, we're actually headed in a different direction, at least in the short term here. I'm showing you the upper level winds, so the jet stream, okay, that river of air in the upper atmosphere. And we know we've had this big ridge in place, and usually that brings fair weather, and it can bring milder weather too, but you have to kind of be on the right side of it with the flow. And we're going to be on the right side of it. Very deep trough, by the way, off towards the east of us. Now, a few things going on. You get that clockwise circulation with high pressure, counterclockwise, and we've got a low that'll be developing to the west of us. So between the two, that's going to be pulling in the southerly winds. At times they will be gusty, but it's also going to encourage our temperatures to be warming up as well. And in terms of sky conditions, a bit of cloud cover at times, mostly fair conditions. The exception will be as the warm front is moving across the province as we go through kind of the next 24 hours. So there will become a chance central and northern regions of getting a little bit of light showers, but for southern parts of the province, I really don't anticipate getting into that until we get to Thursday night into Friday morning. So it's going to hold off a little longer. Those winds not holding off though. So you'll notice some of these gusts here over 40 kilometers an hour, especially towards Thursday, gusting towards 50. This model may be making it a little bit stronger than it will be, but you'll notice that flow coming your way. And this is what it does to the temperatures. So after a low tonight of 3 degrees, it's 16 for the high for us on Wednesday. Thursday up to 20 degrees. We're basically doubling our normal high for this time of year. By Friday, yes, that cloud cover coming into the picture because it's Thursday night into early Friday. I've got that morning rain, those lighter showers. The temperature does dip a little bit as that front kind of is pushing through, but it's still looking pretty good into the weekend. And beyond that, as we move forward through time, we don't get the next real chance of showers coming our way, or at least a significant chance, until we get to Tuesday of next week. I've got your dog walking forecast coming up, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you.
As am I. Thanks so much, Colette. And a reminder, you can find news updated anytime by heading to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba or by downloading the free CBC News app. We have more after the break. Stay with us. Well, the change in seasons signals the beginning of the end of Manitoba's wildfire season for the year. But as this year's wildfires left thousands of hectares in ashes, a group of First Nations is working with a nonprofit to restore a forest that burned down in the Interlake. CBC's Santiago Arias brings us more from the planting site.
Yeah, we're going to throw a plot.
Marking out a 4-meter circumference, Farron Sharp is counting how many jack pine seedlings are still thriving, years after being planted in the ashes of a defunct forest. That is part of a survival assessment undertaken in the fall to track the progress in reforesting Manitoba's Interlake along Highway 6 and south of Grand Rapids.
Fully grown forest used to be here, and then it became a dead forest from the pine budworm. And then once it was salvaged, it became total burn ground. So all of this land was completely black in 2021.
Dead trunks surround Devil's Lake, their charred roots hidden under the tall grass, high and dry soil, ideal for a new generation of trees to grow.
When you're planting by stumps, there's going to be a breakdown of what's underneath the ground there, and it also means if a tree grew there once, it's going to grow there again.
Blue Green Planet Project began planting seedlings in the spring of 2022. They're from 7 Manitoba First Nations.
The biggest part of that is the reconciliation.
Floyd North is a liaison for the communities. He says while reforestation projects often take place on their land, for many First Nations, becoming a part of the forest industry has been a long time coming.
We're trying to create businesses in the treaty communities and try and get them into the game.
2.8 million seedlings have been planted in over 1,300 hectares so far.
The survival rate on the trees they planted is 95%, which is exceptional.
The forest was part of over 1 million hectares of land which burned down in Manitoba in 2021. That year saw hundreds of wildfires, one of the worst seasons in the last decade. The goal now is to plant 20 million trees in the region by 2030.
If we can reestablish forest and help capture some of that carbon and help reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere, hopefully we'll be able to help slow the spread of wildfire, but also encourage other people to take on projects like this.
But if the flames tear through Devil's Lake once again, cones from the new black spruce and jack pines should be able to regenerate the forest.
This project is part of a larger push by the federal government to restore Canada's canopy. They want to plant 2 billion trees by 2031 in hopes rehabilitating forests like this will help ease climate change. Santiago Arias, CBC News, Devil's Lake, Manitoba.
Well, back in Winnipeg, the cricket community is celebrating the addition of new cricket pitches in the city. But as the game continues to grow, so too does the need for places to play. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
Cricket players are soaking up every second of nice weather before winter hits at tournaments like these. And soon, they'll have more places to play in Winnipeg. A new adult-sized pitch is opening in Bridgewater Lakes Park and one for kids at Chancellor Park.
Players all over the city, they're playing in baseball diamonds, soccer grounds, or even sometimes, on walkways as well.
The Manitoba Cricket Association has more than 60 regulated teams and more than 2,000 players. Thousands more play recreationally, but there's not enough room for everyone.
We were approached by 8 to 10 new teams who wants to be part of the league, but we have to refuse them because we don't have cricket grounds.
Parmjeet Shahi says there are 9 pitches in the province, so players travel to places like Brandon and Winkler to play, a small trade-off for the love of the game.
This year we had to go many times just because Assignment Park is under construction, so I hope we're gonna get more cricket grounds next year.
The association also wants to work with the city of Winnipeg on booking times. Shahi says matches usually can't start until around 10 a.m., but because of city rules, they have to book time slots starting earlier in the day, meaning they're paying for time they're not actually using.
Usually our games are from anywhere from 5 to 6 hours a day, so we are looking into a policy where we can fit the games and pay fairly to City of Winnipeg, because we also want to pay so that they can maintain the grounds.
The Manitoba Cricket Association has big goals for the future too. They're hoping to one day have a total of 15 or 16 pitches here in the city. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Automation is changing the nature of work on Canadian farms. A recent industry report estimates that a third of Canadian agricultural jobs will likely be automated in the next decade. Sensors, robots, and self-driving equipment are already replacing tasks that have long been done by people. But the industry says it isn't going to cost jobs. Instead, it's making up for a growing labor shortage. The CBC's Alexander Silberman reports.
Ken Sarauer's Saskatchewan farm is getting less hands-on and a lot more high-tech.
It just makes your job easier.
His combine mostly steers itself, sharing real-time data on the harvest.
I see it as lane assist in your car, right?
This camera on his sprayer uses machine learning, generating maps of crops and weeds. Family farms like Sarauer's are increasingly turning to automation, a shift driven by a persistent labor shortage. 1 in 3 agriculture jobs in Canada, or 100,000 positions, are expected to be filled by technology in the next decade.
Labor challenges.
This expert says robotics are helping farms of all sizes, including family operations.
Now we have smaller scale automation where the small robot works up and down the field meticulously while the operator's not there, all from controls on a smartphone.
These are our advanced processing platforms, so this is kind of like the brains of the autonomy systems.
At this Winnipeg tech company, engineers are developing self-driving grain carts and tillage equipment, already on fields in the US and coming to Canada in the next few years.
So it's really not replacing jobs, it's just allowing farmers to, if they do have help, to deploy those to more valued operations.
Extra time, much needed at Sarauer's farm, a 2-person operation, just him and his dad, with some extra help from uncles during harvest.
The problem is 90% of the time, I don't need to be in the tractor. Whatever, I could be doing something else. My time is better spent marketing and doing the books.
Small farms like Sarauer's face steep costs for autonomous equipment, but the need for labor could force them to adapt quickly. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Anaheim, Saskatchewan.
Canada's annual inflation rate dropped by more than expected last month to 1.6%. As Peter Armstrong reports, that is good news for consumers and soon possibly borrowers.
For months now, inflation has been heading in the right direction. Inflation peaked way back in 2022 at 8.1%. It's slowly worked its way back toward the Bank of Canada's target window between 1 and 3%. But this was unexpected. In September, we saw the lowest year-over-year rate of inflation since the cost of living crisis kicked off in 2021. The fall came mostly as a result of lower gasoline prices. As concerns over inflation begin to fade, though, that takes at least some of the pressure off the Bank of Canada to keep interest rates higher. Some economists think the central bank will cut rates by 50 basis points next week and another 50 basis points by the end of the year. And even that won't so much stimulate the economy as take the bank's foot off the brake pedal.
So that's where, lower interest rates isn't necessarily, from the Bank of Canada's perspective, adding fuel to growth in the economy. At this point, it's still easing off the brakes until they get interest rates back lower down.
But make no mistake, even as the rate of inflation falls, the price you pay for almost everything is significantly higher than it was. Compared with September of 2021, CPI is up 12.7%, grocery prices have climbed 20.7%, and rent is up 21% over that same period. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
South of the border tonight, a new film is out about Donald Trump, but despite his political prominence, the film doesn't include much about politics. And critics say that is becoming a big screen trend. The CBC's Magda Gabriel-Salassi reports.
Well, then maybe I'll run for president. I don't know.
Donald Trump is a polarizing political figure today, but the movie The Apprentice bypasses that, zooming in on his early days as a real estate businessman in New York. At its American premiere, its director made it clear.
This is not a political hit piece.
And yet the film may be an example of how studios are cooling on films that could get political. After a successful showing at the Cannes Film Festival this year, a main financier backed out. Donald Trump threatened legal action, and major studios and streamers were silent. But then Briarcliff Entertainment stepped up, and a crowdfunding campaign kicked in.
If you have companies, in this case, the big corporate distribution system, that is willing to let that sort of culture of fear and intimidation govern their choices, then that's a particular kind of world to live in.
At the Toronto International Film Festival this year, we saw how public pressure can play out too. TVO pulled its support of the controversial documentary Russians at War after a backlash. And critics say films are keeping it safe with plot lines too. The disaster film, Twisters, a box office hit, was criticized for avoiding talk about climate change. And Civil War, that looked like it would dig into real-world politics, strayed from taking a stance.
To take a stand threatens to alienate half your audience.
Ty Burr, a movie critic, says for the studios, there's always pressure not to be overtly political.
It's perceived that it will hurt it financially, it'll hurt it in the market.
Still, if studios take the risk, there's an audience for these films, says this content creator.
Especially in the age of social media where everything is so, everyone's so vocal about their own views and beliefs.
Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
We have more ahead after the break, including this story. The diplomatic fight between Canada and India continued today after the RCMP accused Indian agents of playing a role in widespread acts of violence in Canada. The latest coming up after the break. India and Canada exchanged harsh words today after yesterday's accusations by the RCMP. The Mounties say Indian agents played a role in widespread acts of violence against 6 separatists in Canada, including homicide and extortion. That led to a tit-for-tat expulsion of diplomats. Salima Shivchi has the view from India.
The quiet after the storm outside Canada's High Commission in Delhi as some diplomats hurriedly prepare to leave the country. A far cry from Monday, and the fury of India's denials over allegations their diplomats were targeting pro-Khalistani activists in Canada.
India has decided.
But on Indian television, anger dominates.
Justin Trudeau continued to level baseless allegations against India.
Blaring headlines attacking Justin Trudeau and applauding India.
The decisive action came after Canada escalated its fakery.
Canada's Justin Trudeau shamelessly lied about India, this anchor says, but India stayed strong. The headlines confirm the diplomatic schism is now even wider between the two countries, 1 year after the first allegations from Canada.
It's quite shocking.
The disintegration of ties a shock for this former top diplomat of India, and he believes it's pure politics.
Because right now, the vision seems to be clouded on the Canadian side because of their forthcoming elections there.
An echo of what Indian government officials have said repeatedly, that Trudeau has a political agenda. He's looking for votes in the Sikh diaspora, they say. For many here, Canada's Trudeau had no business attacking India with vague allegations.
And when he made this allegation, we asked him for proof. We asked him to give us evidence. And till date, the government of India says no evidence has been given by the Canadian side.
Good morning.
Only the RCMP says they did present the evidence in full this past weekend, and that India didn't want to hear it.
To engage in clandestine activities.
I don't think we've seen the end of it yet.
Two different narratives and an all-out diplomatic war that's hard to recover from, this longtime political journalist says.
These are two countries calling each other liars. They're calling each other untrustworthy. They're calling each other murderers. This is not diplomatic parlance.
As the diplomats forced to leave, say their goodbyes and pack their bags ahead of the Saturday deadline, they're still bracing for more reaction from a very angry Indian government. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Delhi.
Here in Canada, the RCMP urged people to come forward today with any information they might have about the targeting of 6 separatists in Canada. Yesterday, the Mounties said Indian officials here had been linked to acts of murder and other violent activity. Kate McKenna has the Canadian reaction.
Shocking allegations that left Canadians reeling.
The mere thought of organized crime being orchestrated by a foreign government directed at Canadian citizens and residents is abhorrent.
This is unacceptable.
The Prime Minister and the RCMP have accused the Indian government of being linked to widespread violence, including murders, attacks, and threats in Canada targeting Sikh activists.
It's concerning that a country would go to that length on foreign soil, orchestrating, as I said yesterday, harassment, intimidation, coercion, even homicides.
The RCMP allegations that were shared, the information that was shared yesterday, are deeply, deeply disturbing.
6 Indian diplomats were expelled, alleged to be persons of interest in criminal behavior, and accused of gathering information and intelligence on targets.
We formally requested that India waive diplomatic immunity for 6 individuals based here in Canada, and for India to cooperate in the investigation. This was done so that these individuals could be questioned.
But India refused.
The breadcrumbs seem to all go back to the High Commission and the consulates.
Today I'm rising to inform the House of an extremely serious matter.
More than a year ago, the Prime Minister told Parliament authorities believed India was tied to the killing in British Columbia of pro-Khalistan leader Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Now, a senior government source says they also believe Indian officials may be linked to the death of Winnipeg man Sukhdev Singh Gill. But India vigorously denies the accusations made by Canada, widening the rift between the two countries. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Another Liberal MP is calling for Justin Trudeau to step down as Liberal leader. 2 MPs from Eastern Canada have already called on Trudeau to resign, and now Sean Casey from PEI has publicly joined them.
My job has always been to project the voice of the people I represent in Ottawa, to be Charlottetown's representative in Ottawa and not the reverse. And the message that I've been getting loud and clear and more strongly as time goes by is that it's time for him to go, and I agree.
That was Sean Casey speaking to the CBC's David Cochrane on power and politics. Casey says there are other Liberal MPs who also want Trudeau to resign, but they have yet to speak on the record. The fighting and the rhetoric are escalating in the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Hezbollah is now threatening to launch broader attacks as Israel increases its airstrikes against the militant group. At the same time, Israel is coming under increasing international pressure to ensure the safety of UN peacekeepers in Lebanon. The UN troops are monitoring the so-called blue line that acts as the border between Israel and Lebanon. 5 peacekeepers have been wounded in the latest fighting. Over the weekend, the United States started stepping in with equipment and personnel to bolster Israel's air defenses. The move is seen as part of the preparations for Israel's expected retaliation for a missile barrage launched by Iran on October 1st. The U.S. is giving Israeli government 30 days to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or risk losing its military assistance. Palestinian officials say at least 50 people have been killed as Israeli forces intensify operations, especially in northern Gaza. They say several died when Israeli forces hit a vaccination site and tents near a Gaza hospital. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said troops are dismantling Hamas strongholds. The World Health Organization has launched a new polio vaccination campaign in Gaza. Nearly 93,000 children under the age of 10 are reported to have received a second dose. Well, you're looking at the Comet Chuchinsan Atlas captured at Beaudry Park outside of Headingley last night. It made for what will be its closest approach to our planet last weekend. You'll still be able to see it nightly across the northern hemisphere until the end of the month, though each night fading a little bit further as it moves further away from Earth. It won't be seen for another 80,000 years. Colette, we're hoping for clear skies for that.
Thanks, Riley. Yeah, things looking pretty good. I mean, that's one of the benefits of high pressure, right? We get the stable conditions, a few fair weather clouds, and we'll have a bit more along that warm front as it kind of rides through the province from south to north. The other thing to take into account, not just the daylight hours that we have at this time of year, but nighttime as well. So the sun setting is 6:36, and then your sunrise tomorrow morning at 7:52. And there they are, those normal highs and lows for this time of year. We have been spoiled until the last few days where things have been not quite there, but certainly closer, right? So a few things going on here. As this warm front begins to push in and we get those stronger southerly winds, we will get a bit of cloud cover. It'll push some rain showers in central and northern parts of the province. We'll have a bit of cloud early, and then we should get into mostly sunny conditions by tomorrow afternoon through Winnipeg. But you'll notice back to the west of us, as this cold front is getting closer, it's not really here for Thursday, but by Thursday evening, western sections around Brandon, you'll begin to pick up some rain showers, and then overnight Thursday into Friday morning, we do get some wet weather that's going to move through the southeastern part of the province and then push on through to northwestern Ontario. So your forecast overnight tonight, yes, a few areas where it's getting very close to the freezing mark, even dipping a little bit below, like Thompson tonight at -2. And then looking at your hour by hour for tomorrow, as you'd expect, where it's into the warmer sector and getting that flow, the temperatures pop up more quickly. It remains cool further north until that warm front slides further in your direction and you get onto the favorable side of things. Hour by hour, a cooler start for tomorrow morning. We get going, we get chugging, and the times those winds just a little bit breezy. So do be aware of that for Wednesday and for Thursday. Now, this is what I want to show you. Luna and Maggie. And the reason I'm so happy, these come to us from Barrie, to show you these two cuties with their dog walking forecast is, I don't know, I hope you can tell at home, I have a senior golden retriever who has a little bit of a sugar face, we call it, when you get a little bit of the white whiskers, and I think we might have at least one, if not two seniors here. And I mean, don't they just make the best dogs? Looks like a pretty good dog walking forecast for us coming up as well. Riley, another look at the 7-day forecast when I come back.
All right, thanks so much, Colette. Of course, you can keep sending your photos to talkback@cbc.ca. I'll be back on the weather tomorrow, where I'd love to see your pictures. Here's some leaves of fall. I actually took this when I was home at my parents' place for Thanksgiving over the weekend, so I hope you enjoy the fall colors. Colette, as she mentioned, is back with a last check on our 7-day forecast after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
This place, every community has a tale to tell.
And CBC is here to share them.
Watching, listening, reading, streaming. CBC, telling Manitoba's story wherever you are.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I have some good news when it comes to the forecast, or maybe, I hope, you've just been sticking around because you want to hear it again. So looking at tomorrow, we begin to warm back up after a low tonight of 16 degrees. We'll have some cloud in there mixing with sun in the morning and then becoming mostly sunny into the afternoon. I'm sure you've noticed on Thursday up to 20 degrees, mostly sunny skies, but breezy. And Thursday night into Friday, we do get into a chance for some showers rolling through. And then after that, we're still doing pretty well when a normal high at this time of year is 10, and we're going to see some upper teens, at least to end the weekend. It doesn't cool down again, Riley, until we get to Tuesday.
I'll take it. Thank you so much, Colette. Well, if you've got some extra money laying around, this is your chance to pick up some of Oasis's memorabilia. Prop Store is putting up 15 guitars for auction that used to be owned and played by Noel Gallagher. The auction house says it's the biggest collection of Oasis guitars ever to be sold off in this way. It goes live next month. And there's some thrilling items from Michael Jackson on the block as well. The red jacket from the Thriller tour is expected to go for upwards of $700,000, signed by Jackson and John Landis, who directed that iconic music video. The 4-day auction begins November 15th. In Washington, the National Zoo's long, dark panda drought has now come to an end. This after a new pair of bears arrived late this morning. This is Bo Lee, one of 2 giant pandas who were on their way to Washington this morning, along with Ching Bo. They are the first pandas that China has sent to Washington in 24 years. They will live at the Smithsonian National Zoo, which has had an empty panda exhibit for 11 months since the previous panda pair were returned to China. Zookeepers say the crates are built to allow for bamboo to be passed to the pandas through the bars to make sure they are fed and comfortable throughout the long flight. Those pandas were loaded onto special FedEx trucks and arrived at the zoo just before noon. Very nice. And that is our program for this Tuesday evening. Thank you so much for being with us. You can stay caught up on news at any hour at cbc.ca/Manitoba. We will be back with you again tomorrow night. Have a great evening.